What is up, everyone? I hope you're doing well today. This is Raphael Garcia here on Thursday, December 12th, 2019, and this is the MMA Ratings Podcast, episode 145. And that's a great number to be at because we are previewing and mostly talking about episode UFC 245, which is this Saturday. And I say we, and when I say we, I really mean me because Schwan was unable to join me tonight. So this is just my show. You're dealing with me tonight, all about me. So anyway, as always, thank you for taking the time to listen to this show. You can check us out at MMAratings.net where you can catch this podcast. You can also rank the fights, tell us how good you thought they were on our 1 to 10 star scale, or you can tell us how excited you are for future fights. Again, 1 to 10 star scale there. You can catch our podcast. We have this one and the Let's Talk Wrestling podcast, which comes up at MMA Ratings.net, our YouTube channel. You can also catch us on Spotify, iCloud, Anchor, Stitcher, and iTunes. And I feel like I'm forgetting one, but whatever. Listen to our content when you have the opportunity to. Please be sure to share, and subscribe. Let people know that you're listening to the MMA Ratings content and reading our content as well. And as always, we appreciate you taking the time to do so. Me, myself, you can catch me at rgarcia_sports, where I'm always talking about MMA, professional wrestling, basketball, political issues, social issues, and everything in between. So I have a little bit of an agenda to cover tonight, and I want to pop that back open because I accidentally closed it. So let me open that back up. But as I said, this is episode 145, and we're mostly going to be talking about UFC 245. But before we do that, I wanted to talk a little bit about some news stories. The first being Liz Carmouche and how she was cut from the UFC this past week, and it's actually kind of unfortunate because UFC DC was obviously in Washington DC, and Liz Carmouche was here with the UFC doing promotion. She was going around to various hospitals. She was a part of a leaf laying ceremony over in Arlington National Cemetery, and she was doing a couple other things. Interestingly enough, she actually came to the gym where I teach on Wednesday of last week, and she took part in our Randori session there where we had some live sparring going on. I got a couple rows in with her. And I had a pretty bit interesting conversation with her because she was talking about what's next, saying that, she's been looking for fights and, just trying to get back into the cage after losing. Because she lost to Valentina Shevchenko back in August for the women's flyweight title. So she was looking for what's next in the UFC, looking for her next bout. Lo and behold, the UFC cut her on Thursday. Or news broke that she was cut on Thursday. She had actually been cut before, but the news had just then trickled down to her weeks after. And now she was in DC on her own dime, took time off from work to be there to do promotional events for the UFC for free, not getting paid, but doing those events and with the UFC there, representatives obviously there who knew she was released, and the information just never got trickled down. This is real unfortunate here because they could have treated her much better than this, and everyone acknowledges that. What's been unfortunate is that the UFC hasn't really even apologized for it. I mean, we should expect them to do so, but we know that this is the UFC and they'll probably never do that. But she was left hanging out to dry, and what's been interesting, probably the most intriguing part of this, is you've been seeing stories or social media posts, whether it be on Instagram or Twitter, pop up from various fighters about how grateful they are for the UFC when they've given them money just because. You saw Michael Bisping post one, you saw Daniel Cormier post one, and it's like, man, look, we know what you're trying to do. This is the UFC trying to cover their butts about being pieces of shit when it came to how they treated Liz Carmouche. This is unfortunate. They should not have done this, and everyone involved in the matter knows better, especially for the fact that she was here on her own dime, doing what they asked her to do, and they basically refused to treat her with some dignity. And that's a real unfortunate fact. That's where fighters are today when they stand as quote unquote independent contractors with the UFC. Now, what's really interesting about this, there's two other points I wanted to highlight. Is the first is in order to get a title shot with the UFC, you have to sign a new contract. So Liz was in the second fight, I believe, of a 6-fight contract that she had just signed with the UFC that they released her out of. She was 4-2 in her last 6 fights, so she was performing very well, even at 33, I believe, years of age. So she was continuously finding success. But the reason she was given, if there's an interview that she did with Ariel Helwani this week, is that she was cut because other women not were turning down fights with her. They didn't want to compete against her. And that says a lot. Instead of punishing the people that turned down fights in this regard, they punished the person that they knew that they couldn't beat. So imagine coming to work and getting fired because you're too good at your job. Think about that. That's basically what happened to Liz last week when she was released from the UFC. People don't want to fight her because she's doing too good dispatching prospects coming up in the weight class. But that seems like a problem with them and not necessarily a problem with Liz. But unfortunately, Liz Carmouche faces the ramifications and the repercussions of that situation, and she's jettisoned out from the promotion. So that is a really highly unfortunate situation for her to be in, and that is why she's on her way out. That is why she's out looking for other opportunities. I expect her to pop up in Bellator when there's opportunities there. Combate Americas is doing the best that they can to pull in fighters. Who else? You have One, you have Ryzen, you have Invicta, so she'll pop up somewhere. But it's just unfortunate the way this whole thing went down. Next news story. I don't want to talk too much about UFC DC. I was there in attendance. Definitely want to talk about Bryce Mitchell and his post-fight commentary. I want to just kind of touch upon the main event between Overeem and Joao Rosenstruck. I'm not sure if I'm saying his first name right, but I am okay with the stoppage here. I was there, as I mentioned live. You see Overeem go down, and when he pops up, he stumbles off to his right. He falls against the cage, and goodness, the referee's name escapes me right now, but he stopped him from falling, trying to catch him and pick him back, or like kind of guide him back to his feet. Not to his feet, but guided him steady. And clearly Overeem was hurt at that point in time. Now, up until that point, so for 14 minutes, say 56, 53 seconds of the fight, he was in control. He was winning that fight. He was on his way to a decision victory. But then he eats a bad shot, goes down, and the ref stepped in immediately. I can't really say I don't like the way the ref stepped in immediately because he didn't allow Overeem to take any shots. And he didn't go like super out. He didn't go out like he did when Francis Ngannou uppercutted his head off. He went back against the cage and was sitting on his butt. He was coherent, not fully coherent. Then you look at the scar he had on his face, the damage to his face. That was probably the most disturbing part. He looked like Heath Ledger as the Joker carved a smile into his face. The amount of lip that was missing, you could see above his gum line on his left side. That was horrific. If you haven't seen it, go back, look at some of the pictures. They're floating across social media. They're listed as sensitive content because it's bad. It was a bad knock. It was a bad cut, a bad injury there. So that I understand why they stopped it in that fight because it could have gotten worse, even with just 8 seconds left. It could have gotten much, much, much worse. So I understand why it was stopped. I agree with the stoppage. Yes, it is unfortunate for Overeem. Rosenstruck, he becomes a bigger prospect at heavyweight. Adam Martin wrote about him fighting Francis Ngannou next. I'm okay with that. I think that's a big fight there to kind of determine who's next for the belt. But man, that was a huge, huge, huge knockout there. And if you can find it still, there's video of his return to where is it from? Sierra Leone, where the crowd basically was chanting his name and excited to see him come back. So like that was a pretty big moment there. Let's see what else. That's all I really wanted to talk about from UFC DC. Let's move into probably the meat of tonight's conversation, where I will be talking about UFC 245. And of course, we can't talk about this fight without starting at the main event, where we have Kamaru Usman and Colby Covington fighting for the 170-pound title. Now, Usman is the undisputed champion. Covington is carrying around that interim championship. I don't know if he was actually ever stripped for that belt, but he earned it with his win over, was it Rafael dos Anjos, I believe? I believe that's who he won. I believe that's who he defeated for the interim title, but they both have belts coming into this fight, so, it is what it is. But there's a couple of different talking points I wanted to start with here. The first one being is, would a victory for Kamaru Usman paint him as the hero? And I think the reason, not necessarily I think, the reason why this is a question is because of Colby Covington's antics. And we've talked about it multiple times. We've covered it where, Colby Covington's been saying very divisive things about just about anybody that he can. He's been embracing MAGA culture and kind of leaning on that to get clicks and get headlines, and it's been working. He is the A side of this fight, regardless of the fact that if he's the interim or the undisputed champion at all. He is the A side of this fight. And it was originally Tyron Woodley who was in this position to play the hero, per se, to shut up Colby Covington. But Usman defeated Woodley, and now Woodley is out of the picture. Usman's in it. Usman being a Nigerian-born fighter, there also goes into the racial implications of this fight as well too. Say what you want, combat sports has a heavy, I guess I'll use the word stigma, a heavy history in race and ethnicity playing a part in how fights are booked, how fights are presented, how fights are promoted, and how fans react to fights. If you can't understand that and listen to that, I can't help you, because it's very, very, very well known and commonplace. So the question of whether or not Usman can play the hero here is a good question, because there are a lot of people that are hoping that Covington just gets shut the fuck up. And I think that that narrative is understandable when you look at some of the things he's saying, some of the things he's doing, like hiring women to just stand on his arm, look like arm candy. Just the cringeworthy stuff. Like, if this is how you think you have to go about promoting a fight, then I feel sorry for you. And that actually leads into the second point, because Covington spoke with Candace Owens, of all people, and made a confession about him playing a character because he knew he was going to be in a position, or he claims he was in a position where the UFC told him they were going to cut him regardless of the fact of if he defeated Damian Maia or not. So according to Covington, he defeats Maia and then goes on this quote unquote promo in the ring or in the cage, about everyone there being filthy animals. Everyone being filthy animals, et cetera, and how that helped him become a bigger name. It helped him get some cachet with the UFC. It helped him get some cachet with the UFC and basically make him a stronger draw, for lack of a better term. Now, there are plenty of people talking about whether or not this is true or not. I mean, I feel like that's not my space, because I don't know those conversations. I was not in the room when those conversations were occurring. But the struggle I have with this entire situation is, if that is what you think you had to do to become a draw, what does that mean about you? What does that mean about the sport itself? What does that mean about how the fans respond to this sport? It matters so many different, it raises so many different questions to me. And I was actually just talking about this on Twitter today, and I said, the issue about this to me is that MAGA, the MAGA inclusion of the MAGA stuff, for lack of a better term, is that for many people who look like me, many people who are locked up in cages at the border, many people who are going through financial strains because of tariffs being placed on their goods, people who are finding themselves in situations that are direct negative situations that are directly in play because of what this president has done and what he's put in place and what he's continued to try to put in place around him, we can't look at that as just a joke. We can't look at that as, oh, this is funny, this is haha, this isn't cringeworthy, isn't offensive. So for Covington to take that and try to twist it into a joke and now act like he was just playing a character, that doesn't make him a sympathetic individual to me. It makes me question him as a person because it's just stupid. Like we all know that wasn't necessary. We know that wasn't needed to build up a fight. And what's interesting is, Conor McGregor actually he stroked some racial fires. Excuse me, when he was talking about his fights with Rafael dos Anjos, his fight with what's the guy that does Jose Aldo. He said some pretty divisive sounding things. Ben Askren, he's made comments about Jay Heron that was just like, what are you really trying to say about that? He's made comments about Kamaru Usman being articulate. It's like, what are you really trying to say? Those types of narratives are seeping into mixed martial arts. Kareem Zidane, who writes for Bloody Elbow, I believe he works or MMA fighting, one of the two. But he extensively covers a lot of these white nationalist groups that are popping up teaching people MMA, quote unquote, so they can be prepared for a race war. This isn't a joke to people like me. So to see Covington take that, say it's going to be his joke, and that's how he's going to remain relevant and elevate himself to title contention, that's a problem with me. So if that's a character that he's playing, play it. Be who you are, play it, but don't try to act all what's the word? Don't try to act all what's the word I want to use? Shocked when people don't give a fuck about you and people want to see you get hurt, like people have been saying about Colby Covington. Excuse me, I can't really fully talk today. But those are the two big angles heading into this fight, and I think that Twitter's going to be a shitstorm come Saturday once this fight ends, and it's going to be crazy. And like I want to look away, but it's like almost like a tragic car accident. Breaking down the fight from a style standpoint is very captivating to me. Covington is a very aggressive striker on his feet. That's where he does most of his best work. He overwhelms people. He runs them into the ground. There was a clip of the Rafael dos Anjos fight that where he was just all over dos Anjos, all over. And that's just the type of fighter he is. And when I fought, I wish I was that type of fighter. I didn't have the gas tank to do it. Usman is a similar fighter, but not really. He also overwhelms his opponents, but he doesn't do it in the same fashion. He overwhelms them by pushing their back up against the cage, dragging them down, and beating them up. You saw him do it to Tyron Woodley. You saw him do it to Damian Maia, so many different other people. Like he drags them to the ground, and basically, like the saying goes, drags you into deep water. And that's exactly what he is trying to do that's what the two, that's how the two styles are going to play off of each other on Saturday. And it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Interesting to see what works. Interesting to see what happens because it's going to be a brawl for 5 rounds. I think there are going to be rounds that go both ways. Some people are saying that their wrestling may cancel each other out and it'll be mostly a stand-up war. I think there is space for that, but it's going to be a knockdown, drag-out fight, for lack of a better term. And I'm really looking forward to that. So let's see. What's the next topic I wanted? That's TJ DeSantis? Yep, it is. The next topic I wanted to talk about was Max Holloway and Alexander Volkanovski. They're fighting for the 145 title. And this is an interesting fight here because, yeah, Holloway is a big favorite coming into this fight. People know him. People are aware of what Holloway has done throughout the streak. And I mean, look, they brought Eddie Bravo. So I'm also watching Quintet, which is on UFC Fight Pass. They have the Quintet Ultra that's on today. So they have TJ DeSantis from Sherdog fame brought in with Eddie Bravo, EBI, that Eddie Bravo to be the commentators is pretty cool. But anyway, back to the fight agenda for today. Volkanovski and Holloway And this is a pretty interesting fight, is because the thing that stood out to me the most when I was looking at this fight here is that there is a 5-inch height advantage. Holloway is 5'6", Volkanovski is Holloway is 5'11", Volkanovski is 5'6", but there's a 2-inch reach advantage for Volkanovski, which, it doesn't shake out to a whole lot when you think about it, but it's still pretty captivating, just a captivating angle to kind of think about, because you see different body shapes all the time in professional sports, and specifically combat sports. I think that's pretty cool. But it will be interesting to watch how these fights go down. This fight specifically, because Volkanovski poses an interesting challenge. He has been quietly dismantling people. He last defeated Jose Aldo, and he did so in a way that was just complete domination. Yes, Holloway knocked Aldo out twice, but Volkanovski was able to negate every single thing that Jose Aldo tried to do, which was the first time we kind of saw that, because Aldo was able to get in some shots against Holloway in both fights, some good shots, but Volkanovski basically dominated him and controlled him from start to finish. What's also interesting about that is that Volkanovski's statistical defense, is in the low 60s, which is important, because if he's not taking damage, he's not losing the fight, in my opinion. So let's see what this kind of fight, what this looks to. I don't think that a win for Holloway is enough for him to be considered the 145-pound GOAT. I still think it's Aldo, in my opinion, but it goes a long way in helping the conversation for him. Then you also have to ask if he stays at 145 pounds after this bout. So that brings me to title fight number 3, where we have Amanda Nunes versus Germaine de Randamie. This is a rematch from 2016, I believe. And first comment I have about this fight here is I truly do believe that Amanda Nunes is the greatest of all time. She doesn't get enough consideration on pound for pound conversations right now, but I think that as a woman, as we look at her resume, we look at who she's beaten, who she's dominated, who she's stopped, there's no question that she's the greatest women's fighter of all time. There's others that are in the conversation, quote unquote, but she's going to be my number one pick. She's defeated Rousey, Tate, Holm, Julia Budd, Cyborg. I think that's it. Yeah. She's defeated, just about anybody anybody. So I don't think that there needs to be any more conversation beyond that point. And the question I have here is, it was actually a pretty interesting conversation I saw this week about whether or not fighters are able to get up, quote unquote, for these types of fights because they've already have a victory over the person that they're fighting, and it may not seem like a challenging contest at this point in time in their career. That'll be an interesting piece to watch. Nunes was asked that question, and she basically said that she looks at her title every day, and that's what keeps her, in the mood to compete, in the mood to train hard, in the mood to continue improving. I think that was on, with Fernanda. I can't pronounce Fernanda's last name, so I apologize. But yes, that's my first question when looking at this fight here. Nunes as a champion, how is she prepared? How prepared will she be to get back into this fight here? And the second piece of that is GDR. Can the UFC trust her as a champion? Let's say she does win. We've already seen her one time refuse to fight a opponent because of her own personal reasons. She claims steroids, et cetera, et cetera. We know the background that Cyborg had with PEDs. We know those conversations. We've had them. We've hashed them over and over. We've hashed that over and over and over and over and over again. So yeah, there's that. But the question is whether or not GDR can be trusted as a champion, because she wins a title. Who's to say she doesn't? She decides, okay, I don't want to fight this top contender because I don't think she is legit. I don't think she's clean. I don't think, et cetera, et cetera. Why is that? I mean, why isn't anyone having that conversation? And why don't people think that that could happen again? Because it very well has happened before in the past. I apologize for that because my cats are running around the house screaming right now. But yeah, like that's a big question that people should be asking about GDR, because clearly it's a question that has been answered before, and unfortunately it's been answered in the wrong way. I think Nunes is going to win this fight again, but you never really know. GDR has shown that she can violently stop people and smash people in a moment's notice, so I wouldn't be 110% surprised if she clipped her and finished her out. But man, I'm really leaning towards Nunes to get this win here and kind of continue her run. Then we have Marlon Moraes is welcoming Jose Aldo to the 135-pound division. And the big piece of this, the big conversation piece about this is Aldo's weight cut. The pictures that have been popping up for the last 3 weeks have not been fantastic. We all know Aldo had issues getting down to 145 pounds. 10 more pounds on top of that is a big ass, and he's looking frail in some of these pictures. So he was at the stare down today. He looked emaciated. So let's see what he looks like come Friday, tomorrow morning. But it doesn't look good. He doesn't look healthy. I don't know. I mean, he's not fighting a guy who is a pushover. He's facing the guy who many thought would be the bantamweight champion, who had Henry Cejudo on skates in their fight. But Marlon Moraes is nobody's joke. So this is a tough fight, and I wonder what they're both going to look like. But I definitely am more concerned about how Aldo will look after the weight cut is complete, and whether he'll be able to actually replenish himself for Saturday's fight. And then you have to wonder, if he does win, does he immediately leapfrog everybody for a title shot against Henry Cejudo? Because you have Aldo coming down, you have Uriah Faber returning, he's also on this card. You have Edgar coming down, you have Marlon who's still there, you have Peter Yan who's there, you have Aljamain Sterling, you have so many guys who are putting themselves in title contention, and Henry Cejudo has shown zero interest in fighting any of them. He's out with injury right now, but he's calling out guys like Faber. He's calling out champions of other weight classes. He has no interest in defending the title against anyone that is a top contender, and that is a concern. So if Aldo wins, he is a name, and he is someone that could be paired against Henry Cejudo to headline a event. So you have to wonder, if he gets a win over Marlon Moraes on Saturday, does he automatically leap back into that title picture? If Marlon wins, I don't think he does. I don't think he does leap right back into the title picture. So we'll just kind of have to see how that plays out. But I think this is a all or nothing for Aldo, and he has much more to gain in this fight, and basically nothing to lose, except for a leg, because it looks like that's what he's going to need to cut off to make weight. Let's see who is next I wanted to talk about. Peter Yan and Uriah Faber. I have a question for everyone out there. Is it wrong to call Uriah Faber a stepping stone at this point in his career? I actually was writing a piece for Fansided about this, and I had to catch myself because I wrote that Uriah Faber is a stepping stone at this point. And I felt bad because, yeah, he got that 46-second stoppage over Ricky Simone. Was it earlier this year? And now, you know, he slides in there to face Peter Yan, who I think is number 3 ranked in the division. So you have to wonder what a win for Faber does at this point in time, and how that really kind of plays out. So, in my opinion, I think Peter Yan is going to win this fight. I'm not saying Faber is a stepping stone. I'm just saying he isn't the elite of the elite at this point in time. So we're going to kind of see that play out. And I think that this fight is definitely for Peter Yan to win. He has much more to gain. I don't think that the UFC will put him in the title picture, even if he wins. I don't think he has enough cachet to demand a title shot, and that's kind of unfortunate. But I really think that that's kind of how that's going to play out, even if he does pick up a victory. Let's see. So like I said, I'm watching Quintet Ultra at the same time. We got Craig Jones and Fredson Fagel out here fighting in an 8-minute sub-only match, and Craig's doing his thing, already getting the sweep, coming up on top, and he's going right. He has Fredson's trying to play the outside leg lock game, but that's not me. It's Craig fucking Jones. What the hell are you gonna do about that? But that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about one other fight. Ooh, nice back take. One other fight I wanted to talk about was, actually, what else stood out to me on this card? So a couple of different things popped out. Caitlin Vieira, she has not fought in a year. I believe it's been a year, and she's stepping back into the cage. She was undefeated coming into, I believe she's undefeated, right? Yep, 10-0. She has not fought since defeating Kat Zingano in March of last year. And because she was dealing with multiple injuries. So you have to wonder, and she's fighting Irene Aldana. Aldana is not a easy out in any way, shape, or form. So let's see what she looks like, that being Vieira after such a long time off, because she may be a top challenger for Nunes if she can come out with a win. Speaking of women being top challengers, Jessica Eye is also fighting on this card, and I'm wondering if she's fighting for her job, especially after the way that Carmouche was cut, because Eye is a tough challenger for the women coming up. Craig Jones gets the tap with 5 minutes left. So let me live tweet this real quick. Craig Jones gets the sub via RNC with 5 plus remaining. Quintet Ultra. So I wonder if we are looking at a situation where if Jessica Eye wins, she could be on her way out of the UFC win, lose, or draw, because she got smoked by Valentina Shevchenko, so she doesn't really have too much value, and I do that in quotes, to UFC right now. She's lost at 135. She's lost at 125. Where does she really fit in? They can't keep her around if she continues to knock off contenders. They've shown that they don't want to do that because Carmouche is much more successful, much more valuable. Then you have to wonder what's next. I think if she wins or if she loses, she's out of the picture, to be honest. I don't, you have to, so she must have re-signed a new contract before the title fight where she got knocked out earlier this year. I think this is her first fight back. So let's kind of really see how that plays out. Those are the big stories I'm looking for with UFC 245. Is this Saturday from the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. I'm looking forward to this event. I think it's going to be a pretty good card, and I think Twitter is going to be a shitstorm once that main event ends and once that main event ends. So let's see what that's really going to be like, and that's going to hold on to our butts, as someone once said from Jurassic Park. But all in all, as always, you know where to find my work. You can check me out at R. Garcia Sports, where I'm writing about wrestling, professional grappling, like Quintet Tonight, MMA, basketball, everything along those lines. And yeah, stay up with me at rgarcia_sports. MMA ratings, you can catch us at MMAratings.net. MMA ratings on YouTube, where you see this show and our other podcasts. MMA ratings net on Instagram and Twitter. And yeah, that's really it, guys. I appreciate you all for listening to me tonight. Schwan, I have no idea where you are. Hope you're doing all right, bro. Hope the girls haven't ran you into the ground. But all in all, we will be back next week, potentially. Is next week Christmas or is the week after that? I think it's the week after that, right? Yeah, we'll be back next week. That'll be our last show for the year. And yeah, as always, thank you all for listening to this show. I appreciate you. And have a great weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.